folks, and welcome back to NTI's Japan Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Ziv Nakajima again, and this podcast was brought to you, among others, by Emil Gorgis, a Tokyo real estate agent who specializes in serving international or mixed nationality families looking for the perfect family home. So Emil's an Australian. He's been living here in Japan for the past 2 decades, 8 years of which he's been actively buying, selling, and managing real estate properties in the city on behalf of his own family and a great many happy clients. And he also acts as a mortgage broker on behalf of his clients. So his company has a dedicated loan officer in many of the Japanese mega banks. And if you're a regular listener, you probably already know him from our JREP, the Japan Real Estate Experts panel sessions. So you're probably already aware that the man is an absolute fountain of wisdom on all things related to real estate in Japan, and in particular to family homes, the greater Tokyo metropolitan area, and mortgages. And most importantly, he's incredibly generous with his time and advice, which he's more than happy to provide at no cost or commitment to anyone asking. So if you've been thinking about buying your home in Tokyo, but you've been sitting on the fence for a while, or if you just want to have a chat in English with a real expert, drop him a line on emil.gorgis, that's emil.gorges, emil.gorgis at tokyorealty.jp. Hit him up today and start exploring your options. All right, so we're back with our JREP panel for a really interesting session this time. We talk global supply chain issues and how these affect renovations and their cost. We talk about how to calculate yield on investment properties and how to calculate profitability of short-term stay properties. So we look at different scenarios, property profiles, buy cheap and renovate, or buy ready to go, other types of situations. We also talk about the cost of renovations and how they affect resale prices and potential rental income, and vice versa. How do tenant profiles and rental income affect the extent and cost of recommended renovations? And then we look a little bit deeper into how an investor actually looks at these renovated properties as opposed to an owner-occupier or a holiday home buyer. And towards the end, we talk about a potential upcoming live face-to-face JREP seminar that we may be holding in Tokyo soon. Enjoy the conversation, and I'll see you again on the other side. All right, JREP back in session. We should have a theme song or something, right? Like drum roll, guitars.
Yes.
I thought you already put one on there, Ziv.
The podcast has one, but that's for everything, JREP or not. We want to have a JREP session like intro. All right, shall we? I don't know what's left to write, but ladies first. Tracy?
Sure thing. So my name's Tracy. I am the Minpaku short-term rental expert here in Tokyo, but I'm pretty clued up on all of the ways to profit and maximize your business in short-term rental, either in Japan or globally. So I have a blog, I consult, and I also am a property manager here. So that's me.
Blanca.
Hi, everybody. My name is Blanca, and I am the co-founder and marketing director of AgriForm, bilingual, so English, Japanese, reform company in Tokyo and in Chiba. And we are your go-to company when you need to renovate any of your properties, whether it is your personal or a commercial property, or you need to just build up a new store. Anything you need, we are here for you. And we can do that both in English and in Japanese.
Hey guys, so I'm a real estate agent based here in Tokyo. So I help foreign families or mixed families find their personal home in Tokyo. And we also work with the banks. We have loan officers assigned to our agency, so we can also do the mortgage broking function and anything finance related. Discussions with the bank, we can do all of that for you. So if you have any questions, reach out. And Ziv, to you, my friend.
Yeah, well, now that there's the three of you here, I should start with saying that I'm not in Tokyo, right? Everyone else is in Tokyo. But yeah, we do basically almost everything else. So we don't do owner-occupied homes. We don't do renovations. We hire people like Blanca. We don't do short-term stays. We hire people like Tracy. But anything to do with holiday homes, investment properties, anywhere in Japan, whether you are present in Japan or doing it all remotely, which is our specialty, NTI is your company, and we've also been doing it for about 10 years. So what are we going to be talking about today? Maybe out of Tokyo, that's a good start. You guys are not active anything out of the Kanto region at all, are you?
Well, no, I mean, I help some of my clients are out of Tokyo, but I don't have a like a Minpaku business. It's all Tokyo based. Yeah.
Well, we are Tokyo and Chiba, so that's basically still Kanto. So
Kanto plane.
yes,
Yeah.
So no Saitama, no Yokohama as well?
You know what, Saitama, some parts of the Saitama are really close, so we can do Saitama. We had two business clients in Saitama, because Saitama is basically just across the bridge from me. So in the close parts of Saitama, if the customers are close by to us and it makes sense, then yes, we do go to Saitama. We had a client in Yokohama because basically it was a client that wanted to deal with us specifically, so he was willing to pay for the extra expenses related to our transport to Yokohama. So we did Yokohama as well.
And likewise, so we just closed a deal in Yokohama recently. So yeah, I would go down to that area, but that's sort of the extent of it. Kanagawa, really down towards the beach. Chigasaki, for example, is probably a bit far than we can really service properly. If it's an existing client or a referral, we may sort of do it on a sort of case-by-case basis. But in general, it's difficult for us to really go, like when we show houses, right? I will go and view 4 or 5 in one weekend or one afternoon with a client or a family. And we'll do that several weekends, right? Over a 2, 3, 4 month period, however long it takes to find the property. And it's just logistically challenging when it's so far away. We can't provide the same level of service to someone who's looking, within Tokyo, where it's very easy to go there frequently. And even after they buy the property, should there be any issues or, ongoing visits, it's easy for us to support it. Whereas a place, down towards Chigasaki, that starts to really push the limit of us being able to provide good service. And then, if it's a completely different prefecture, like, Osaka, for example, that's kind of a bit beyond the scope of what we'd like to do.
It's not really the rules or the laws as such. It's just that Japan is really such a community-based and local community-based environment. So the vibe that you're going to get in a Jiugaoka is different from just different parts of Tokyo, and people you're not just buying the property, or you're not just going to stay in a property. You're actually investing into a community and the little microculture that's in that community as well. So and it's hard, it's hard to know all of it. So that's why I tend to specialize in a certain neighborhoods, because my clients want me to be able to show them all the local flavor and the best restaurants, or the hidden out of the way places. And I cannot do that across this massive city. So so that's why I tend to specialize in certain pockets of Tokyo.
I guess for us, from the get-go, our thing was that we do everything you need us to do anywhere in Japan. And from the get-go, we were always using third parties. So we're not the agents, we're not the property managers. So for us, we're always ambivalent to where it is. But I feel the pain for foreigners who do want to do things on their own or with local providers, and they just can't find anyone there's a handful in Osaka, but beyond those two, it becomes very challenging in Japan.
In general, right now, it's challenging with anybody, any subcontractors, anybody that you might want to cooperate with, or even staff. It's very, very challenging.
How are you finding supply chain issues, Blanca? Is that sort of affecting you? Is that affecting? Yeah. We haven't really spoken about that on this podcast. So.
Yes, definitely. There's a shortage of raw materials, and even a lot of parts are actually brought from Taiwan or China, and we just don't have them. What Japan does with a lot of things, they bring it from abroad and then they assemble here. So some of the parts that are, you know, manufactured outside of Japan, they are just not getting here on time. There's a huge shortage of ships, containers, and the price is just crazy. The prices of container went about
Gasoline is through the roof, right? Like
yeah,
the
I think
oil
it's about 4 times. It's about 4 times what it was year and a half ago. And now from July, the prices are going to go up again. And plus, what some of these suppliers are doing or starting to do right now is that they basically are limiting their production because they do not have enough parts to produce an entire line. So they stick with, for example, the most popular 3 products of that line and only make that. So where you used to have a variety of 10, now you have 3, and it's either you take it or you don't have it at all. So
that's hard. Yeah.
Yeah, and then prices are going to go up again from July. So we are rushing. We are quite busy right now trying to, you know, close contracts with existing clients and, you know, find the materials with them right now so we can order before the end of the month to save, you know, even, you know, any penny we can for them. So it's kind of stressful because from 1st of July, the prices are going to go up again.
We've had renovations pushed back a couple of months now because of missing parts, but the price, I have to knock on wood, has remained the same.
If you know, like I always, if we sign a contract with the client, we honor the price that we signed on. So I think that's one thing you can count on in Japan. Usually, if they sign up with you for that price, then you are getting that price no matter what.
Yeah. I think what's happening though is the prices that, like, from the manufacturer, so for example Panasonic or whatnot, you know, a company like Blanca's who's doing the renovation, they currently keeping their prices the same, but across the board is what it sounds like is on from July they're going to increase them, correct?
Yep.
So yes, so to date the prices haven't increased, but because the manufacturer has been the manufacturer has been bearing the any sort of fluctuation, but then from now they're like, look, we can't cope anymore. let's we have to pass it on to the customer. So July 1st, any quote over that is going to be higher.
Any quote that is not basically any contract that is not signed until before the end of June is not going to be honored, and the prices will go up if the customer decides July 1st, oh, by the way, I still want it. Then I'm sorry, but you know, you will have to redo. We will have to recalculate and redo it. So it's kind of like it's a bit stressful because it's not cheap. Japan,
Yeah.
I
do want to say I've been, like, just a bit of a tangent, just sort of what you brought up, Blanca. It's kind of interesting. When we first started this group, it used to be on Clubhouse, and it was a room that we were chatting. It was like, you know, I was doing a foreigner's guide to buying Japan, real estate in Tokyo, which is a seminar I used to do before I started doing it on Clubhouse. And Ziv I'd met before, and he's like, look, he's got a podcast. Let's start doing a group thing. And Tracy is, so I do sort of personal homes. Ziv does investment properties. Tracy does the short-term rentals. And I thought, okay, wow, this is actually great because we get 3 real estate people that can talk, but each of us add value. We are a separate area of the real estate business. And then I thought that's pretty good coverage. And then we got Matt came in, and I thought, well, you know, that's different. But Akiya, okay, that's cool. That's a whole new sort of thing that fits in. And now, you know, just the input that you bring, Blanca, from the renovation side of stuff. Because when we had Matt, I thought, okay, yeah, great, we've really got all the parts covered. What more is there? And now I go, oh, hold on, we've got another one. Well, okay, great, and it's fantastic, and there's no sort of overlap. Everyone has their own, you know, specialty, which they really add value to this. So, and just your insight right now was a very clear sort of example of, you know, stuff that we couldn't, like, we've all had experience with renovations and what have you, but in terms of the pricing and supply chain and a whole bunch of stuff like that, it's just really great having you on board. So I just
need
felt
a commercial. We need a commercial property expert now.
Yes. No, but I love chatting with people that understand a different part of things. And as you say, it's all about adding value. That's what it's in real life as well. Whoever you have in your circle, if you are adding value to each other one way or another, those are the people you want to hang around with anyways. So I think it's really good.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to building in our case at least, building a business network of partners that you can work with, right? Like if it's this, I'll send it to this guy. If it's that location, I'll send it to that person, and so forth. It's really valuable to have. Sorry, you were saying, Emil?
What was the thing? Oh yeah, well, I was going to sort of go on a bit of a, just like I was thinking now on that note of providing sort of different value and whatnot. One thing I was thinking of starting doing was Wednesday. So we do this every Wednesday at 1:30 is when we record it. When it gets actually published is a completely different thing. But I was thinking on my side, so what happens with the real estate side of stuff is we often go and do house viewings. So I contact the sellers and I'll go do a viewing. Usually it's with the clients, but we can also do viewings just, people like agents will go and take photos to advertise on their website and what have you. So we can get the keys for lots of houses and apartments pretty much any time. The ones that are newly renovated or newly built. So one thing I'm thinking is, Wednesdays I'll actually do that from a house, and like in basically an open house. I'll be just me there because no one else is there, and the real estate industry is generally closed on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So Wednesday I'll go there and for 5 minutes throughout we'll do this, but then I'll do a quick tour and walk through an explanation of the house for something a little bit. Again, we're talking about sort of adding value to this in our own little unique sort of pocket of expertise. So yeah, little walkthrough sessions on Wednesdays. Generally about 2 to 3 minutes is sufficient, to be honest, for the walkthrough.
Oh, you'd be surprised. We get a few walkthroughs on our YouTube channel, and I tend to always run into the Zoom 40-minute time limit when we do those, because there's always, could you look at that, and could you approximate how high it is from the counter to the bottom, and would my furniture fit here, and would I be able to do like walkthroughs? Even in small apartments, walkthroughs can take a bit of time.
Yeah, that's when you have a client that you're explaining everything to, and they're asking questions back and forth.
Yeah.
So I was saying just give it a try once on this Zoom. I think we don't have the 40 like 5 minutes, just a quick thing. See how the viewers consider.
I think another thing that we should probably do, because our viewers, I know they're watching and listening, I can see the download numbers, but they're not sending in any questions. So I'm thinking we should maybe just announce and do a live webinar.
Yeah, I think lives are really good.
Because we can easily fill in a day with a presentation followed by a Q&A by each of us, right?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Sure, yeah.
Tracy, and are you doing consulting with I would say consulting sessions with clients that might be interested in getting into Minpaku and are not sure? Are you doing that as well?
I do a couple of those a month, actually.
Yeah.
So I actually had a walkthrough. I do a couple a month. So
good. Because why I'm asking is the property we are about to renovate. The clients, they basically have a main house and then they have a guest house that are planning to possibly do as a Minpaku, but they don't know anything about it. So I told them, I have to ask, because I actually don't know whether you offer those services. So that's why I was asking, because they might be potentially interested in hiring you, or booking a session with you and discuss because they don't even know, okay, if we do that, what do we actually need in that property? Like what we shouldn't miss and things like that. So
I've actually got all the coaching tools. So I've actually got, checklists and spreadsheets and things like, how much could you earn? And then Ziv and I have done some magical spreadsheets to compare, buildings that are a long-term rental return versus, a short-term rental return. So we've done a couple of dummied up options that way. So we've got some, for people to make good choices. So, Ziv and I, we've combined our knowledge and because he sells property for long-term rentals, and depending on the size of the building, sometimes you're better off going long-term, and then sometimes you're better off going off short-term. So
that was really fascinating to see actually how the ROI just changes as you go from size of unit, size of building. Yeah.
It would be definitely
really interesting.
It will be definitely interesting, especially when I'm now thinking about this one specific client, because their main house is fantastic, it's gorgeous, and then they have a guest house that we basically gonna turn now into a first floor living, dining, kitchen, and a second floor bedroom and bathroom. So very nice. And, can be doable. And of course, they said, our families are going to be coming and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, but you're not going to have families here 365 days a year. Yeah. Why not turn it into an income? You have a bunch of golf courses around in the area because it's in the Chiba. It's in Chiba.
Perfect.
Yeah. So you have a bunch of golf courses around. They have 3 parking spaces with the house. So really, really beautiful property, and the potential is huge, but as I'm saying, they don't know what to do. So I think it all comes down to zoning. But it's the first thing you got to do is look at the zoning, and then what the like we were saying before, each area has its own flavor, and then each city has its own rules based on the residential zoning, commercial zoning. So
it'll actually be really interesting if we could do the same thing that Tracy and I have done, but include you, Blanca, and actually see the difference between buying an old place and sprucing it up to rentable standards versus buying a place that's already done, right? So we could compare bargains that are on the market. Well, wait, is it really a bargain? Because if you renovate it, it could cost that much, but then you can actually custom fit it to short-term rentals and so forth. There's a lot of stuff to dig into that.
Yeah, I have a client who's just done that. She picked up an IKEA, not an IKEA. She picked up a really cheap house which could not be rebuilt, and the renovations have just been redone. And I did a walkthrough on it the other day, and I just went, "Whoa, this was fantastic!" So, and for things like for when she did the renovations, she did things like she ripped out the futon cupboards and created a little desk nook, because people don't need like futon cupboards when you've got beds for them, and so this is just wasted space. So she created a working from home area, and then in the other room it actually became the where the double bed goes, and then above it she put in another place for a single bed. So it was really, really, really well done. So they're the tweaks that you do if you're planning to renovate for a short-term rental versus something that you're going to live in. Yeah. So that's a really interesting. We
have a client now that it's actually deliberating. He has a beautiful apartment, but has been renting it for a long-term rental. The people left. Now he has to completely renovate it because, of course, they've been there for 7 years. With 2 teenage children, and so there's a lot of wear and tear, and so now he's kind of contemplating, am I gonna sell it as it is, am I gonna renovate it and rent it out, or am I gonna renovate it and sell it? So he's kind of now in the debate, which is for him, because it's quite an expensive property, so which to him makes more sense, because he does not really need to sell it, because it's his. He doesn't mind keeping it and renting it. So it's really interesting to see how much if you do a nice renovation, how much it can actually add to the value in that specific location. Whereas if you would sell it like that, how people are trying to push you down, of course, with the price, because then they cannot see, then they see the higher price of the renovations that they would have to pay to be even able to move in and things like that. So it's actually very interesting to consider all the factors.
Emil was talking about that on a few occasions, weren't you? About the what kind of renovations can actually boost the market price and what are just completely lifestyle choices, right?
Yeah. So my take on that is so it depends on the age of the house. Often when pricing happens, when people buying place, it's different to the West. The West is very much we never almost consider the age of the property. It's very rare that we consider it. We're 30 or 60 or 80-year-old house. It doesn't really matter. It's how modern it has been updated. Whereas in Japan, the age of the house is kind of really sticks. So if it's a 30-year-old house, but it's you spend a lot renovating it, it's still going to be assessed market value as largely a 30-year-old house, right? So if there's an option to buy a brand new house, or this for 70 million yen, or a used house next door for 60 million, and you add 10 million of renovations to bring it up to even a better standard, it doesn't matter. It's still a 20 or 30-year-old house, and the value is not going to go up by how much you put the renovation in. So, so it's largely square meterage and the size of the house and the age, assuming the location is the same between option A and option B.
Yeah. This one is a mansion. It's an apartment in the upper floor with a gorgeous balcony. It's if I had the spare money, I would buy that one actually.
So the mansions are a bit different because they are because they're concrete. They have a longer age. Okay, they last longer, and also if it's tattered, it needs when we talk about renovation, you can this is more Blanca's thing, but generally 10 to 15 years is when the wet areas really get bathroom, toilets, kitchen start showing their age. If they've been used really nicely, then I guess 15 years. But if they've been used heavily, 10 to 15, you can justify changing them, right?
Over here, the problem is that, as I said, they have 2 teenage sons, and I don't know what was going on in that apartment, but it needs to be checked.
So and if they've lived there for I guess the boys are teenagers, right? So they lived there they say maybe it is 15 years old, right? That's generally in standard in any sort of property. A 15-year-old bathroom is a little bit tight, even if you had bought it new. It's time to upgrade. You can justify that. Wallpaper, definitely. Wallpaper for a house.
We interrupt this broadcast. I always wanted to say this. We interrupt this broadcast to tell you about Tokyo Family Stays. They're a short-term rentals company in Tokyo, and they offer a home away from home experience, which is just perfect for remote working, quarantining, or if you just need somewhere quiet to hide away from the world. So they offer a variety of options for families, for corporate relocations, or simply if you're transitioning between homes in Tokyo. Now, the properties are super comfortable, tastefully furnished, fully equipped with all amenities, and they accommodate up to 10 people. So really the only thing you'll need to bring with you is your toothbrush and maybe a change of clothes. They've got fast, unlimited wireless internet, dedicated workspaces, and fully equipped kitchens, and they're just a delight to stay in, a fantastic alternative to Japanese business hotels, which if you've ever stayed in one, you probably know they're tiny, they're noisy, fine for a night or two if you're on your own, but long-term or with a family, you'll probably feel you're in a jail cell very quickly. So if you want to give yourself a sense of space and freedom by renting a real home with comfortable Western beds, including all the necessities like baby bedding, children's toys, high chairs, you definitely want to reach out to Tokyo Family Stays. They've been at it for over a decade. They're a fully licensed minpaku or short-term stay operator. And as a special bonus for our viewers and listeners, they're also throwing in a breakfast basket upon arrival for anyone who books and mentions the Japan Real Estate Podcast or NTI. And not only for guests, if you're a property owner, you've got an investment property that you want to tweak for higher profits, or a holiday home that you want rented out when not in use via short-term stays, drop them a line today. See how they can help you maximize your property's income. And again, as a special bonus to our viewers and listeners, they're also offering a free audit of your existing short-term stay listings without any obligation whatsoever. So feel free to reach out to them at tokyofamilystays.com. Well worth your visit. And again, if you're in the market for a family home in or around the Tokyo metropolitan area, Emil's your man. Don't be shy to reach out to him as well at emil.gorgees, Gorgees, at tokyorealty.jp.
Well, Blanca, about, what is it? How many thousand yen per square meter? So I just say 80 square meter mansion. What are we looking at for just basic wallpaper change?
Oh, Jesus
yen?
Christ. What is it? If you are doing the standard, the very basic,
Standard grade.
The very basic wallpaper, I think right now with the new prices, it's about 1,500 per square meter. Oh, hold on. I have a quotation for the cross. I'm doing that right now. I'm actually calculating that right now.
Yeah, what I can do, Blanca, actually, I can use my clients, like my friend, she's friend client, as a case study, and that actually would be really interesting. I could say, this is how big the house is, and this is what she paid for it. This is what it was earning as a pre-renovated house. This is now what it's going to be earning as a short, and this is what the renovations cost, and this is what because it's a house, it's really depreciated as far as it's going to go, so now it's really just going to be on what the cash flow on a month is going to be compared to what it could be rented at. So but offset the cost of how much she paid for it, and then how much she sunk into the renos. It looks amazing. That what she did is just outstanding.
But when I'm looking at a quotation that I have here for a wallpaper, and if you are applying like a basic wallpaper, you are looking at approximately 1,500 to 1,700 yen per square meter, and then it depends what it's under, because you have to, if you are taking it off, and then depending on the condition of the wall under, it's about 100 yen per square meter for removal, and about 200 yen if you have to do some kind of a curing or prep work. What it's under, that's like additional, but the wallpaper and the application is about 1,700 per square meter of wallpaper.
About 200,000 yen to say 200 to 300,000 yen,
so
depending on the quality of wallpaper.
Plus minus 2,000 yen, and you go with that standard nice wallpaper. You have a whole catalog that you can choose from, but it's not a luxurious, of course, but it's the normal nice standard wallpaper. So you plus minus 2,000 yen.
You can get Tracy in to paint over it.
Don't touch my wallpaper. Yeah. So look, so going back to the point, right? So if it's a 20-year-old place, a 15-year-old place, I kind of think what we tell people, we got some clients that want to sell, and they're like, should I change the vanity unit? Should I renovate the bathroom before I advertise? It's a common question when people want to sell. And the thing is, though, it kind of like when I have clients that want to buy, they often know the extra upgrades that you do don't really reflect, because when you upgrade it, you're going to pay kind of cheaply for the upgrade. And the places we're looking at in Tokyo, they're like 80 million yen, right? These are the average kind of properties that we're dealing with. So spending 80,000 yen on a new vanity unit is like, it's not really a great for the customer, the client. They're like, well, it's there. It's not actually the one I want. It's a basic one. It's a cheaper one, but it's brand new, so I can't throw it out. Right. And similar with the wallpaper, if the place is that old and you just want to touch up a few things, it's tough, because the client's going to be like, well, I'd rather they have not done anything And I can just
It's-
gut it and I can renovate it all myself.
That's a really valid point. I think it's very different when an owner-occupier is looking at a unrenovated property, and when we as investors look at it, like we're basically looking at how quickly can we get a tenant in there, and they're looking at can I just make it comfortable for me to live in.
It really depends, on the property and everything, but also, if you don't renovate it, you have to be ready to go down with the price, because the people will tell you, oh, but I know, I know because we did that with our house. We knew we had to change things when we were buying it. So we were like, oh, but hold on a second. We have to redo this. We have to redo that. And then you push the price down, a few million yen. So it depends. The mansion I'm talking about is way over what we are talking. So for this client in general, it's actually better to renovate, because he's not really even set on selling, because he kind of likes the place. And discussing with him, when he saw it yesterday, he was like, oh, I might actually just keep it. So he wants to. So I think the point is he's going to renovate it either way, and then decide whether he keeps it or he doesn't keep it. But if you know you are selling a property and it's whatever years old, it's better for you to leave it, be ready to lose some money or go down with the price, so then the new people can put in whatever they want, of course. It really depends on the property. Some people, they just want to move in right away. And a lot of people, and I realize that a lot of people cannot visualize how the property will look.
So true.
So you bring
Same
them
as staging, right? Like we were talking about the other day. Like you've got furniture in there, people, oh, okay, that's what it's going to look like when I got my furniture in it.
Yes. And the same thing, it's with when you get, you move out of an apartment or out of a house, and everything, all the wallpaper is dirty and the floor is scratched or whatever. They cannot see how it's done, how it's going to look when it's going to be fixed. They cannot visualize that. And then for them it's like, oh, but I don't know any reform company, I cannot, then they cannot picture how much it's going to cost, and it kind of also puts them off the sale sometimes. But I think you come across that. That's why we are here, and we deal with somebody.
We're so used. That's the thing. We have this skill that a lot of like people out in the wild don't have, because we're looking at properties all day and every day, and we're looking at the possibilities of how they could be. So it is a skill, and not to there are people who can't visualize. It doesn't make them bad people. It's just that they're not in it on a daily basis. So that's why we're here.
And that's why I like to speak with real estate agents that are selling properties or selling apartments, because it's good that they'll be like, okay, but it's not good. But if you want, we have a reform company that we work with. They can invite us to the meeting, and then we look at the property and we'll tell them approximately it will take this long, and will cost you about this and this much money, depending on the quality of the products you want to use. And that also helps people, because some of them are just really stressed because they cannot even figure out. In the center of Tokyo, for example, this apartment is literally central Tokyo, and the new person will be like, oh, where I'm going to start looking for a reform company, or where am I going to start looking for a gardener to put some nice things on the balcony, because that place has a huge balcony with amazing potentials, but the people cannot see that.
We do a similar thing. So we have a renovation department in our office for our clients for exactly this. So definitely there are people that cannot visualize it, right? So
one of them, by the way, it doesn't matter how many properties I look at, when I see it open, I say, oh, I can maybe put a table there, but I can't really picture a room and furniture and a nice renovation without actually seeing it.
What we do, so for example, when I go to the client, it's if we want to sell those places, I was saying before about the renovations, so we can actually provide a quote as well. So if we're trying to sell a place, we look, this is it, and this is, like as Mike was saying, people don't know how much it will cost to change a wallpaper or toilet, so actually provide it with the quote, right? When you're trying to sell, and say, look, they've gotten a quote, so you have some idea of, we can change this, we can change that, and they can select. and they know that, okay, this is part of the price. And another thing is when you have the quotes, you can actually, when you apply for the home loan, you apply for the home loan and put the renovation quote together.
Yeah.
And so let's say 70 million for the property and 5 million yen worth of renovations, the bank will consider it all together in 75 million yen.
Mm.
Right? It's not completely separate. So that's, of course, one of the part of the sales thing. One thing, look, in terms of whether to do a renovation or not, and if it will add value, that's, I think, also a bit of a case-by-case basis. I think more often than not, there isn't the value add. Of course, it depends on the property. But one thing I see that surprises me with used properties is no cleaning. And you go into a place that hasn't been cleaned, and again with teenage kids, or kids that are like just handprints all over the wall. Just the dishwasher looks disgusting when you open, even if it's an old one, even if they're going to renovate the kitchen, it just looks disgusting and unappealing and dusty and dirty.
Mm-hmm.
Like to do a full house clean is what, about 100,000 yen, right? The professional, like when you move, and they do such a good job. They get into the bathroom, like it doesn't look as old as it does. Right. And I really feel that 100,000 yen professional clean, sort of like the move out clean, is probably worth it. It's like such a small additional cost in the 80 million yen home, but it will be attract clients more than the 100,000 yen difference in price. 100,000 yen is basically negligible. But I feel that's something that is overlooked. But in terms of renovation, it's such a case-by-case situation. A big one I think that we haven't really discussed is the ratio of the renovation cost to the value of the property, right? If it's because renovation kind of costs the same, whether it's if you get the same house in central Tokyo in Azabu versus out in Chiba, it's the same size house, same kind of renovation required, the materials are still going to be the same, right? Construction costs going to be about the same. So whether it's a 10 million yen renovation in Chiba or the same property in Azabu, it's still going to be 10 million yen for the most part.
Yeah.
But it's easier to justify on a property that's getting 500,000 yen a month, 600,000 yen a month rental return versus 120,000 yen a month.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So we had a guy he was in the Azabu area, and he was trying to sell his place. I think it was about 1.3 or 1.5 oku. I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, he's like, you know what? He put it out. So one thing that we do, if people aren't too fussed about selling or renting, we'll actually advertise both. We'll show it for selling and for rental as well. And it's kind of whichever gets more attention and gets sort of first selected, the owner's usually happy to go either way. And this one will end up getting, I think it was the low to mid 500,000 yen a month, right? For like a 90 square meter apartment. For 520 or 540,000 yen a month rental. Just 1 month's rent will cover redoing all the wallpaper in that apartment. And he wants a better quality tenant, right? As well, when they're paying that kind of premium. So it's easier to justify, fix that, fix the scratches on the floor, fix this, fix that, because it's covered in 1 or 2 months rent. Whereas if it's an apartment that's quite far away, like in a different prefecture, then that needs 8 months of rent to cover it, or a year worth of rent to cover it. So the ROI is not the same. And the type of tenant is different. So so there's lots of factors you need to consider. It's not just straight up, is it worth renovating or selling unrenovated?
That's exactly the case where we are, because the apartment I'm talking about has a rental, can be rented for approximately 1 mil a month.
Nice.
So
wow,
Tracy, it's gorgeous. I'm telling you, if I had the money that he wants to sell it for, I would have bought it. That place is gorgeous. It's fantastic, and the terrace and everything, it's like all you want from your city creep.
Does he have a listing agent, Blanca?
Yeah, he does, unfortunately. Otherwise, I would have.
That guy.
But he does, and it's gorgeous and everything. But it's a million a month rent. So even if he invests a year of rent into the reform, he will get basically a brand new place, and it's still his. he can still sell it anytime, but it's renovated and it looks fantastic.
I wonder how much the building fees are for a place like that. The monthly kumia, I mean.
Saman Nantuka, Saman Sons and Sama. Yeah,
that's not too bad. Okay.
About either 33 or 38 from what I've seen at the paper. It's either 33 or 38.
Yeah.
But it's always good to, you know, for people that can't see what a before and after is going to be, obviously to have, you know, to have photos or some sort of CGI. It's like, oh, this is, you know, this is what it's going to be. So, you know, that'll help the sales along.
Just doing my thing. Like as soon as somebody tells me how much rent it's getting a month, I open up the calculator and try to work out what it's worth buying for. Sorry. Yeah. Carry on. Ignore me.
Just 5%. Just calculate. Like I have like 5% with ROI. Probably in Tokyo, probably like that. We'll get lower, like under 4%, like in the 3s. I think.
Yeah, that's what I'm
modern
thinking.
Place. Yeah.
Explain that. Actually, you know what? Explain. That's a really, you know, we've got 10 minutes left. How about you explain how you calculate the ROI? That would actually be really useful.
So in Tokyo, you know what? How about let Ziv do it? Because this is more his. Like I can talk about it, but Ziv is more the investment company guy. So.
Okay. Well, what we normally do is we work out how much the actual net rental income is going to be, because for example, Blanca's now saying $1 million a month, so that's the starting point. Then we need to deduct from that the monthly building fees. We need to deduct from that the property management fee, which is usually 5% or 5.5% including tax. And then we who's that? Someone's talking.
my son's here. Ria, come here. Robo, come. Ria, come. Can you say hello? Come here. No, come on, yeah. Okay, no, he's a bit shy now. All of a sudden, he's all chatty and whatnot, and then he realizes, oh wait, no, he might be caught on it. He's on a runner. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, so we deduct everything that we need to deduct for monthly building fees and property management fee, and then we do that times 12, and that's the annual income. And then we work out the price of the property, but the real price of the purchase, so not what's listed. So when you look at Japanese property listings, they're usually not including the purchase costs. So they don't include the legal and registration fees, the purchase tax, and the monthly fees as well don't include the property management fee.
The title changes, right?
Yeah, and they don't include the insurance that you need to pay, which is not a huge amount in Japan, but still something to factor in. And then we divide the annual income by the total cost to purchase. And then that gives us the net pre-tax percentage yield per year. So we know that every year, if we get, like in Blanca's case, let's say it was really net million, we'd get 12 million yen a year in rental income divided by the price of the property. If the price of the property was, for example, 120 million yen, then we'd be getting 10% a year. Not going to be the case, but that was what we'd be getting for it. And that's net pre-tax, but that's not including whatever tax you're paying. So depending on your individual circumstances, if you're working in Japan and you're generating salary income in Japan, if you got a business in Japan, you're already paying a certain threshold of tax. So then that income gets added to your total tax liabilities, and then you need to factor in how much percentage you'll be paying on tax. And it also doesn't include any unknowns. So vacancies, when the property becomes vacant, there's renovation and there's a few months of vacancy, and then there's the price of advertising and placing a new tenant. And it doesn't include maintenance, which we can kind of estimate based on averages, but it's a very rough estimate because, you know, you could have 5 or 6 years where nothing breaks and then suddenly you have to replace the bathroom. So that's a really rough estimate on averages. And that's how we work it out, basically. I mean, it's a lot easier to do when you're actually looking at an Excel spreadsheet, but yeah,
but that's about it. So I think you are looking at about 3 to 4%.
Yeah, that's usually Tokyo properties.
The ease. So you mentioned it. Like I'll give the easy breakdown, because you mentioned that what you do really well, Ziv, I think is very kind of, I say, honorable. But in this business in particular, is you always use net yield pre-tax, because taxes depends on the individual, but net, right? So all the expenses, all the costs and of purchase and whatnot, and then the rental minus the monthly fees, management stuff. So the net is really the important number. What the advertisers always do on the flyers and everything is always the gross. Just the monthly rent times 12 divided by the list price.
That's not
Okay.
right.
And that works if you're only paying
that's
1,000 yen.
Yeah.
If you're paying 1,000 yen a month in building fees, that's fine. But
yeah, well, I mean, it's just important to inform listeners that we're looking at gross. So usually when you see the flyers, it says like rental yield is 4.5%. That's the gross yield. It actually ends up being less than that. But how it works is an easy tool. Is so on average, properties in Tokyo, like used properties, are about 4 to 5% gross yield. So that means that your rent is about, like per year, your annual rent is about 5%. So 1/20th of the property value. So if you're kind of just curious, how much is my property worth? Just think, what's your annual rent? So your rent times 12. Okay, so say you're paying, 200,000 yen a month. I'll do the calculator here. 200,000 yen a month times 12 divided by, let's say 4.5%, 0.045 equals 53 million yen.
that's what it's worth to an investor, though. It's a very different story when it's somebody else buying it.
Oh yeah, true that. But my point is rather like, if you're kind of curious, the place I live in right now, about how much is it to buy? This is like, it's just kind of a ballpark. Is it 30 million? Is it 50? Is it 100 million? Like we have no idea. Just think, okay, you're paying about 4 to 5 yield, and it's just like a simple kind of just to give you an idea. Yeah, that's a simple way to approach it.
No, but it's a very accurate calculation in the sense that this is how investors decide how much they want to pay for a property. That's exactly right. I mean, we know that we can get 4 to 5% in Tokyo. If this property is being priced in a way that makes it 2 or 3%, then I'm just going to buy another one, right?
Now, let me just share my screen. We've only got a couple of minutes left, but let me just share my screen. We can actually do a deep dive into this on another session.
Oh, so, that looks familiar.
That looks familiar. This is the names have been changed to protect the innocent. So here is the. And we'll do a deep dive on this, but what you were saying is that you were looking at the listing price, the monthly rent, and then all of the purchase costs, worst case scenarios, total, this is all in Japanese yen, the total purchase price, and then all of the various costs, and then the annual yield.
Just tell people not to look at the USD column because that's about 30% higher now.
Yeah, But this particular property, you were looking at like an annual yield of 3.8 and 26. Is that like, that's the term of like, that's where you
term of return. That's how long it's going to take to get your money back.
Sure. Yeah. And for that particular property, when I did the short-term rental calculations,
double, right? Yeah.
That was double. Mm-hmm. And then looking at a different property, so this particular one, which had a different makeup, this was like all 1K apartments. And you did the same thing here. You got a yield of 4.2, but because they're only small, my short-term projections are much less on a 1K versus a 2 LDK or a 3 LDK. So
because the price the cost per month per unit that you need to put into in maintenance and checkouts and check-ins and cleaning is actually a lot higher, right?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, because it costs nearly as much to get a short-term rental client as it does, like if you're in a 1K as you are for like a bigger property, but they're worth more to you.
They're paying 3 times as much. Yeah.
So they're worth 3 times as much, but your costs don't change. So anyway, we can do it. I've got to get going, but it's just a really interesting, thing that we should do a deep dive on, because I'm guessing that people who listen to us, want to see some hard numbers. And so
I think the webinar, actually, I'm kind of tempted to make it a face-to-face seminar because I haven't had a business trip in far too long.
Yes. Well, who wants to come on a business trip? Yay, that would be fantastic. Yay!
So, we can do some of that, and Emil and Blanca can actually do a session themselves too about renovating a property.
We can host it. We can host it in our office in Ibis.
And
how many people do you fit in there?
Well, we could almost do a hybrid. We could almost do a
40,
hybrid one as well,
50.
Right?
How many? Sorry,
40, 50.
That'll do. Last time
Oh, yeah,
we had
big.
a Tokyo
It's
seminar,
big.
that's what we got. We got about 40, 50 people. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like, yeah, let's do that. And we could almost make it hybrid if for people who are not in Japan. So
Yep, webinar as well. Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Yeah,
thank you
that's
for
the
your
plan.
time, folks.
That's the plan. Let's put it in the diary and let's do it. Love
All right.
it.
See you soon, and hopefully see you face to face.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
See you next
You guys
week.
have a great week.
You too.
too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
So there you have it. Really good conversation today, I thought. And the upcoming JREP seminar, you heard it here first. Now, before we go, we're also, as always, going to tell you and also link to our other sponsor's website. That's Hiroshi Shimizu, immigration lawyer and administrative scrivener. If you're thinking about moving here on a more permanent basis, or you're already in Japan on some sort of a temporary visa and you want to switch to a longer term or permanent one, or if you're considering setting up a local company or a branch office of a foreign company and you've got any sort of business or visa related inquiries, or even if you just want to find out what your options are on any of these topics, feel free to contact Hiroshi Shimizu. You can find him at japanimmigrationexperts.com. And he can help you set up a company, apply for any kind of visa, or just provide you with the best advice and extremely affordable consultation related to these topics. And he's already done that for many of our listeners. So feel free to reach out to him. Again, that's japanimmigrationexperts.com, and you'll be well on your way. And that's it from us for today, folks. Hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Japan Real Estate Podcast. Do share it with your networks, and please let us know what you think. So leave us a short rating or review on the iTunes Store, on Spotify, or just drop us a line in the comment section of wherever you might have found this episode. We love hearing from you. Hope to have you with us again next time, and until then, have a great day or night ahead. Yoroshiku.